So the first thing you're going to do with the Anbernic RG557 if you're shopping for it is compare it to the Retroid Pocket 5. And so we are going to look at that today. The Retroid Pocket 5, including shipping, is $264. This is more expensive. Now, this straight off the bat plays Switch games and a lot of other things better because of its Snapdragon chipset. But on paper, this is more powerful. So there is a conversation to be had. On LITNXT, the RG557 is $316 with their coupon code. It's ABN. Use the coupon code ABN, and so you'll get it for 316 USD. That is including shipping. So, it is expensive. That is not something that I can get away from. But at that price point, we do need to mention stuff like the Adin 2 Mini. Now, a lot more expensive, but also you getting your money's worth. This is very, very well made, and it's a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is going to play a lot of Switch games, and it's going to play everything very smoothly without too much hassle and sort of like easily. So that is a big plus with this. But these things are expensive. That's $374. Including shipping. These are shipped to me, so the prices are going to differ to you, but I just wanted to compare apples with apples. This AYN Adin 2 Portal is $381. Now what you're getting here is just a massive device, beautiful OLED screen. The PWM strain is not bad. Like I took it on holiday with me and I didn't experience it at all. You've got the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset. You've got swappable buttons. I don't know if you can do that with this. That's neither here nor there. But you're getting a lot. You're getting a lot for your money here. It's just probably one of the nicest devices on the market right now for emulation, for streaming, and for Android things. But that being said, this is an expensive device, and so I want to put it this way. I want to make an argument, a very convincing argument for the Anbernic RG557. The first thing we'll discuss is power, because this has the MediaTek Dimensity 8300 and it has 12 gigabytes of RAM, which is decent for these sorts of devices. So for all your Android things, this thing is fantastic. The problem is, it's not a Snapdragon chipset, which means you don't have as much compatibility with GPUs. You don't have those custom turnip GPU drivers to play around with. And it really does make a difference. Even on these very powerful devices, sometimes you have an issue with a game, switch around the turnip driver, and suddenly you're off to the races. And sometimes it's too dramatic effect, where a game just won't play and suddenly plays because of a turnip driver. You're not going to have that compatibility here. But it's more powerful than the Retroid Pocket 5 on paper. And so we need to discuss what that means. You're not going to be able to play Switch games very well because of the drivers, the turnip drivers, the custom drivers. It just doesn't work well. It works well on the Snapdragon chipset, and so Switch is not your bag here. I did a head-to-head comparison with the Retroid Pocket 5, and it just didn't perform well. Where it does perform well, though, is I put PS2 games on here, scaled them up 4x, 5x resolution. I had Gran Turismo playing at 60 FPS at 4x resolution. That is really good. Very, very good PS2 performance. So if you want this for PS2, I just stretched it to this beautiful screen. It plays well. And that means GameCube is also playing well. 3DS, same kind of bag of tricks with 3DS. We do have limitations with 3DS, but it plays quite nicely and looks beautiful on the screen. I've also seen a couple of videos released doing the PS3 emulator on here with some... I didn't watch the videos, to be honest, so go have a look, but the titles were good results, so go have a look at that. I haven't looked into that yet, so don't buy this on a promise of it doing something very experimental right now, but it's nice to see that. The big surprise here was Wii U emulation. I didn't play a huge catalog of Wii U games, but it felt like some of the games that I've tried in the past were working. That could be that they've updated the Wii U, that CMU emulator. But it was very good, and the colors look amazing on the screen. I was disappointed that Donkey Kong didn't work because the intro just looked incredible, but Donkey Kong was just a brown blob, unfortunately. But you can play your sneaky little plumber game for the Wii U on here, and arguably better than the Switch game, so you're getting to play that game on here. Trying very hard not to say the name. So Android gaming is going to be good, and a lot of the gaming that a lot of people want. For instance, I've had many people say to me, I just want something that plays PS2 well. This is that handheld. It's going to do all of that very, very well, thanks to the brute force of this Dimensity chip. This RG launcher has come a long way. This is Anbernic's own retro game launcher, and the way that it's set up, the game selection, the fact that I didn't have to do much to play a lot of these games. PS2, I haven't actually touched the emulator, and I've done a test on this, you know, so they are doing a lot to get this working nicely. And in their settings, you can choose what front end you want. So if you want to use Emulation Station or something else, you just go into the Android settings and change your launcher. You're not stuck with the Anbernic launcher. You don't have to do some sort of customization with this RG launcher button. But again, it must be iterated that these devices, these Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 devices from AYN, are far more powerful. So if it's a lot more money, but you are getting your money's worth. I must say that if you want to get something more powerful, these things are great. But we're going to get to, like I said, I'm making a very convincing argument for the RG557. The screen. So I did a PWM test, and apart from that, the PWM test, if you see dual lines, like a trail of lines behind the line going through the screen, didn't show up so well on the camera, but it is there, and I experienced eye strain. So definitely a screen that's not for people who are sensitive to that sort of thing. But as I mentioned, the colors are lovely. That Wii U game, all the Wii U games, in fact, the colors were just exceptional. You've got those deep blacks thanks to the OLED. You've got, you've got better battery performance thanks to the OLED as well. And if we quickly just do a little brightness test, it gets very bright, but then it also gets very, very dim. So this is just a very good all-round screen. These OLED screens, they're pretty good. And it makes your stream games look flipping fantastic. I mean, this screen just looks very, very good. I mean, I've got a pretty good screen on my Bazite device playing Steam, but this is a very good screen. So let's talk about the controls on this, because it does have good controls. These triggers are great. I did a linear test streaming some racing games, and it works really well. These triggers are very digital, very clicky digital bumpers. So those are very clicky. Your function buttons, quite clicky, not too bad. But where it matters, so this is the thing. Listen to the difference between these action buttons, and I'm kind of mashing them. I'm giving them a good press, like a slam. That's the Retroid Pocket 5. Now, that could be, and I think that is a deal breaker for a lot of people with the Retroid devices, are those clacky buttons. This just doesn't have that. The D-pad, Retroid. So if that bothers you, this thing is great. But something that I have noticed is the actuations of these rubber membrane buttons. I thought there was input delay, and I realized it just wasn't receiving an input. So I think if you get this, for the first couple of days, just kind of wear these buttons in a little bit, because it's been a thing in the past with Anbernic where these buttons need to be worn in. And I will keep you up to date in the comments or in social media whether these have worn in or if they're actually a problem, and I don't think they are. One of the big things for my very good argument is that the joystick is up top. Now that makes a big difference for streaming and for even, Switch games we're not really going to be playing, but a lot of PS2 games, it's nice to have the joystick up top. We're finally at a point where a joystick up top makes sense on a device that is this powerful. And the D-pad is quite large. It's quite a large D-pad, and it's enjoyable to use. I heard someone say they don't like the smoothness of it, and I think that is a definite valid point. But, it's something different. Smooth D-pad, nice rubber membrane, retro-style D-pad. Nice. And we need to quickly just take a look compared to the Retroid Pocket 5, the ergonomics in terms of the buttons. I'll try do an overlay thing here, but the problem with the Retroid Pocket 5 is the proximity of the joystick to the action buttons and the fact that there's not enough of a diagonal between this and here. So you hold it like this and your fingers go here. Whereas with the Anbernic, you hold it like this, your fingers go there. So it's just a little bit better, and it goes a long way. Now let's just talk about the joysticks for a second. As much as I think they are quite nice, there's no snapping to cardinals. I did a nice little test and I was getting to color in all the lines with the joystick. So the joystick is good, and there's a lot of customization on the joystick. When I was streaming, I did a little, I tested all the little customizations, and I got the joysticks to work pretty well, not perfectly, they're not ideal for the streaming and for sort of high-end games, but it works quite well. Now, what I don't understand is they went, and maybe it's because we all moaned about it, they went for these joysticks on the RG406, I think this one is called, and these are ideal for streaming and all sorts of things, but they do stick out a lot. But this is not a pocketable device, so I'm not sure why they didn't rather just go for these sticky outy sticks, because these are really nice. Anyway, so that brings me on to streaming. Now, this is one of the huge things to make an argument for this. So if all of these things are like, oh, that is something I really like about a device, oh, that is something I really like about a device, and you watch this video and you're like, all these things that Adin has said are the things that I love in a device, then this handheld is for you. So I'm kind of selling this handheld to you, but then at the end I'm going to give you all the bad things about it. As opposed to the RG556, which I picked it up after, I don't think I gave it a great review. And I picked it up and I was using it and I thought, this thing is so nice. My son enjoys playing games on here. I think the thing I missed is that this thing could be great for streaming, and it just isn't. It has shirty joysticks, Switch-style joysticks, very snappy, and I think they did fix the snapping to cardinals, but still not the best. And this has Wi-Fi 5, I think. This has Wi-Fi 6E. And so the 557 is a really nice streaming handheld. Now, as I mentioned, the joysticks are not like the best. I had to really tweak them when I was playing Doom Eternal, and I had to mess with the dead zone and the sensitivity just to get it just right. And there was almost a threshold when I moved it just past a certain point, like 140 something. It was too slow, and then when I moved it up, it was too fast. So they still are a little bit too snappy, and Anbernic do tend to do that. The joysticks on the Retroid Pocket 5 are definitely better. So that is a little bit of a bummer, but the screen, the comfort, the controls, the fact that it is a little bit smaller, all comes together to make it a really cute and neat little streaming handheld. Now, I love the Odin 2 Portal for streaming. Let's forget about price and all that kind of thing. It's a lovely handheld for streaming, but even around the house, as much as when I got this, and I still think it's probably one of the best handhelds of the year, I just prefer a smaller handheld in the house. I don't. It just feels a little bit obnoxious and cumbersome, and especially, I'm going to make a video about this, but the fact that I need a grip to make it more comfortable. This kind of has all the correct hallmarks of a small streaming device for your house. Beautiful screen, nice controls, adequate joysticks. It's kind of got all of the things, and it has video out, so you can use these glasses, and if you do use the Virtua, you have to use this little this thing on the front. You have to use it because it makes you look ridiculous, and that is what life is all about. Okay, so here by default it's just cloning the screen, and now this is just so nice for FPS. And I have come to the sort of belief that having that video out for XR glasses is a huge plus. The thing about these goggles is once you get into gaming and maybe, you know, a year from now you buy one of these, they really make such a big difference to your gaming experience, especially if you don't want to bother someone. Like maybe once a week, it's not good for your health, but once a week I will do this where I will play a game in bed at night. It's very relaxing and I just enjoy it. You know, if I'm feeling like I can stay up late, you know, I'm an old man now. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the size and ergonomics, because you don't have, like, here's the thing. This device, as it is, it's quite compact, and yet it has some of the nicest ergonomics of a handheld that I own. I mean, the only thing that is superior to this is the Steam Deck. This thing with the grip. Okay, maybe this. Yeah, the downside is that it's small. So here I'm getting a full grip of my hands. Let's just get that at the bottom here. Whereas here, it's not filling the bottom of my hands. It's, you know, so that's the only downside I can see. It's a small compromise. If you are big on having a smaller handheld, you've got a compact size with a really good grip. But let's just do something for a second. Let's take the grip off here, because I'm upset with AYN about this grip. Okay, we've got the AYN Portal 2, we've got the AYN Odin 2, Odin 2 Mini, and we've got the Retroid Pocket 5. Now the Retroid Pocket 5 is lovely, but you hold it at the tips of your fingers. I've said it before, I don't quite understand this whole bulge effect here. I would rather have just had it flat here, and then they bring out a grip, which they finally have done. And so this with the grip is going to be great, but as it stands, the ergonomics are not fantastic on here. Now, the Odin 2 Mini, very nice because it has this wraparound Vita-style effect, and I love holding this thing, but the ergonomics are also not fantastic. Here we've got a little bit of a bulge, and the size of the Odin 2 Portal is what gives it its comfort, but still not the most comfortable device. Very smooth shell, almost like problematically smooth, and so also not very, very comfy. This out, yeah, you see, as soon that is a very nice grip. Hands get something to hold onto there, nice trigger placement. This is the most comfortable handheld of the lot. Now there's the thing. So, I mean, you can't pocket it. Well, actually, hang on. Take my car keys out. You can't pocket it? Yes, you can. Well, I mean, I look ridiculous, but it does fit in there. But if you consider for a second, you forget about the price and the fact that it's a bit iffy with Switch emulation, this handout's kind of perfect. Okay, let's jump through a few major negatives that if these become too many, like I've done 4 major negatives. And I would say if you're over 2, if you're 3 or 4, then maybe this handout isn't for you. The one is, and this is actually a deal breaker, if you are sensitive to PWM, which is the pulse width modulation, what they do is they create little gaps where the screen flickers, not visible to the eye, but it flickers to make it dimmer on the low end. So if you are sensitive to that, you shouldn't buy this. Then it has downward firing speakers. Now, I've been doing a lot of testing and I've been playing a lot of different games. Some, you know, like Burnout has like rock music playing. I've been playing Forza Horizon, which has all sorts of music playing. I played Doom Eternal, which has got heavy metal music playing, and it all plays quite well. Like the speakers are not bad. It's just the fact that they're downward firing that is a problem. Now, the fan noise can be a problem. It is quite noisy and it comes on intermittently. So if you are trying to be discreet, the fan noise is an issue. Here we go. That's the fan noise at its maximum, but its saving grace is that it's not whiny. The Retroid Pocket 5, on the other hand, has a high-pitched whine, which is quite unpleasant to the ears. This has just got a dull, low-end drone. So if it's intermittent and it's annoying the people around you, rather just put it on and leave it on so it's just a low drone in the background rather than an intermittent sound that keeps coming on. And then obviously the other big one is that it's over $300. You know, you can get a Steam Deck for it. If you're in the States and you want to get a refurbished Steam Deck or something, you're in that territory. So it is quite expensive. And so those are big deal breakers. But as I said, the other things that I've mentioned, specifically the streaming, the size, the controls, the screen, all of that, like if you are specifically looking for a compact, very comfortable, beautiful OLED streaming and powerful Android gaming handheld, this is kind of the best thing out there. Okay, I'm going to close with the reason that I think a lot of people will consider an Anbernic Android handheld right now, and that is their RG launcher. Believe it or not, they have spent some time. Their emulators are current. They used to put older emulators on here. I saw the new update just put Azahar on here. The setup is done quite well. Like I said, have not messed around with PS too much. We just went off to the races straight away. There are a few little housekeeping things that I had to do, open the emulator and map the keys and that sort of thing. But overall, there were a lot of games that I could play straight away without messing around. Now, I want to tell you a story. A while back, I had someone send me, there was a PowerKitty Android device, like it was the first big screen Android device in our scene. And there was a person in New York. They specifically wanted this handheld, and they specifically wanted someone like myself, someone in the scene that knew games and knew all the things, to set it up for them. This person purchased it, had it sent to me, had me set it up. I think I charged a fee, and have it DHL'd to them in New York. Now, I think at the time it was $100, over $100 to ship it to them. This person was willing to spend a premium. I think it was almost the price of a Steam Deck to have their emulation handheld that they were going to use for the next year, 2 years, set up, ready to roll with games that they had pre-selected, all done. So there you have someone who's willing to pay a premium for their handheld being set up to their liking. And I think there is a market out there. I think there are a lot of people out there who are wanting something like that, who have a little bit of extra money to spend, are willing to pay a premium to have their handheld ready to roll. So there is my very convincing argument for the RG557. It's one of the most comfortable medium-sized handhelds on the market. The triggers are lovely. The controls are adequate for almost every situation. The screen is beautiful and big enough, and it's not too large. I think a lot of people don't want a massive handheld like the AYN Odin 2 Portal. And so when we're talking about this, people who are willing to spend this money, this isn't super expensive. And so I think that, coupled with the RG launcher, this is a lovely device for a very specific audience out there.